Hey everybody, I'm back with another video, and today we are talking about the financing of freight and transportation. Now, before I get started, let me just say I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney. However, I am somebody who has knowledge, and I'm just here to share that knowledge with you. So, let's go forward. My name is Jewel Williams, and I am the founder of Freight Be Moving and the host of the podcast All Things Logistics. So let's go get into this story I found on Associated Press. I thought it was interesting because it pertains to the financing of a freight transaction. Now, the story was written April 14th, 2023. Global Wire released it. And it says Triumph Pay, a leader in payments for the transportation industry, today announced a strategic partnership with Highway, a premier technology provider for carrier identity management. The collaboration aims to identify and mitigate double brokering fraud schemes that are increasing in frequency, scale, and sophistication. Now, the other day, I released a video on double brokering and co-brokering. I'm going to link it up here so that way if you want to check that video out to get some more background in regards to this, add more context to what this article is about. Now, historically, the tools for fighting double brokering have been limited in their ability to truly identify fraudulent activity and have relied on reports from brokers, publicly available information, and basic scoring models. This partnership will combine the breadth of freight spend from Triumph Pay and the depth of highway carriers and equipment information to identify who is hauling the freight than their actual equipment would allow. So I found this article to be very interesting because it's basically showing how Triumph has seen some, I would say, fraudulent activity that is impacting their bottom line, and therefore they have to tackle the situation. So before we go down any further, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Triumph. Now, excuse me while I get my notes here together. I did my best to be prepared for all of this. However, I got a little sidetracked, so thanks for being patient. So let's look at what is freight financing. Like, what does that look like? So I wanted to put together some information to give you a visual. So when we get a visual of what I'm talking about, I've got here a picture of some raw material that was purchased, and that raw material is actually shipping to a company, and it's going to turn into something that they can use. And I actually took this picture. I was making my own delivery, and I thought I'd use this as a visual to give some examples. So when the purchaser, the buyer, the customer who needs this raw material buys it from the supplier, an invoice is created. And that invoice is then used as a receivable document that factoring companies like Triumph will purchase that receivable from the person, the actual supplier, so they can get their money faster. Now, the reason behind this is most companies, when they purchase things, they have credit terms. They're usually 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. So they may not pay that invoice after they are billed right immediately. They usually wait 30, 60, or 90 days. And in this situation, companies who have the raw material that they need to sell because they need to get their money so that they can continue to do what they do, Triumph is a company that will come in and they will buy that invoice at a discount, and then they will go after the customer whose name is on the invoice. So let's take another look a little bit deeper into this subject. So going a little bit deeper into this subject, I went and took a look at how to really define factoring from a legal standpoint, from a book standpoint, and I found something on the IRS website. And so this is what the IRS's website in their book, how they determine factoring and how they classify factoring. What it says here is companies generate accounts receivable by selling goods or services to their customers on credit. Many companies who extend credit to their customers sell their accounts receivable to a factor. A factor is somebody like Triumph. A factor is a specialized financial intermediary who purchases accounts receivable at a discount. Under a factoring agreement, a company sells or assigns its account receivable to a factor in exchange for a cash advance. The factor typically charges interest on the advance plus a commission. The price paid for the receivable is discounted from their face amount to take into account the likelihood of uncollectability of some of the receivables. Factoring is a technique used by companies to manage their accounts receivable and provide financing. Typically, companies that have access to sources of financing that is less expensive than factoring would not use factoring as a source. For example, like if a company could go and get a line of credit with a bank that they have a relationship with, they may choose to stay with that bank as opposed to going to a company like Triumph to support and finance their day-to-day transactions. So a factor may provide any of the following services: investigation of the credit risk of customers of the client, assumption of the credit risk of customers, collection of the client's accounts receivable from customers, bookkeeping and reporting services related to accounts receivables, provision of expertise related to disputes, returns, and adjustments, and advancing or financing. So I thought that would be good to share that with you. For those of you who may be entering into the field of freight brokerage, you might be looking at starting your own warehousing distribution company. You may be looking at purchasing inventory from overseas and selling it on Amazon or some other venue like eBay. And you might have questions like, how are you going to finance your operation? So you have options out there. And like I said, I'm not an accountant nor an attorney. However, with my background and experience, I am familiar with these types of transactions. And so if you decided that you wanted to use a factor company, you can go out there and sell your product or service, bill your customer, and then you can sell that receivable to a company. It may not be Triumph, but it may be another company. So that's just one way in which factoring companies work with you. So now's a good time to take a good look at Triumph. Now, I am not being paid to do this video. I chose to do this story because I wanted to add some more context to what it was, what the process was in financing the freight and transportation industry. And with all of the issues going on with double brokering, rates, and theft, fraud, it's all centers around money, and financing is about money. So I just thought that would be a good topic. I want to remind you, if you're getting value from this, if you find this information to be helpful to you, I'm going to ask that you hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so that you'll be reminded each time I release a video. And comment down below. I'd like to know if you're using a company to factor. It doesn't have to be Triumph. It could be any company. And is that working for your company? Do you find that to be an advantage? And if you are somebody like a truck driver, do you find it to be helpful to work with brokers or other companies that do factoring so that you can get your money faster? Nobody likes to wait around 30, 60, or 90 days after they've done the transaction to get their money. All right, so let's take a look at who Triumph is. And we're going to go over here to their website and take a look. So according to them, Triumph is a carrier payment platform that connects brokers, shippers, and carriers through forward-thinking solutions that help each party successfully process, settle, and manage carrier payments and drive growth. Now, I was looking down here at some of their partners. They have teamed up with Ascend TMS. I'm familiar with them. Turvo, I believe it's called. Descartes Freight Waves is another one of their partners. They've got here Intelligent Audit, McLeod. I also see here Mercury Gate, RMIS, which is a service a lot of brokerage companies use to vet and to verify if trucking companies are legitimate. And if you're not using some service like that, from my own experience, I would definitely recommend you look into these things, because these things are tools to help you be a better freight business owner. So these are just some of their partners that they have. Now, the company is publicly traded. It is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And I was taking a look at some of their financials here on, this is Yahoo Finance. And I was just curious about what the company does in revenue. And I saw here that in 2019, as you can see here on this line, I've highlighted, in 2019, their revenue was at 287,472. I'm sure that's in billions or millions. I don't see where it indicates that on this chart, but I would say that's in the millions. But if you look, you can see that the company has grown from that 287 million up to $484,560. So they've definitely made some progress over the years. The company is growing, and they definitely show some good potential. So another thing I wanted to look at was what their business was about, just to give you more context as to that Triumph is just not a factoring company, but they're also a banking institute. And this report right here comes from their SEC filing. This is a report that you can get on the SEC website. And because they are a publicly traded company, this is public information. So I found it to be very informative about the company. But they have several segments. They do banking through their TBK Bank. It is a wholly owned bank subsidiary. They do factoring, as they say here, with their primary focus in the over-the-road trucking industry. And they've got what they call Triumph Pay, which is their payment system and is a division of their TBK Bank as well. So with this, principal services being banking and so forth, it gave me an idea about the company and what was supporting them. I was curious, how is a company like Triumph able to finance such a powerful industry? There's a lot of moving parts, as I've said before, in the trucking and transportation industry. And this company taking on such a endeavor definitely needed to have some deep pockets. So knowing that they are a publicly traded company helped me understand where that money is coming from. And I hope that helps you understand how a lot of the transactions that are being financed in the freight and transportation business, most of these companies are publicly traded. So it gives them some deeper pockets to do transactions. So I wanted to share with you some other insights that I found about Triumph. In looking through some of the reports that were on the Triumph website and filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, I was able to find their annual report that they released in February 2023. And reading through the CEO's information, I found it to be very informative to give some understanding of how big the trucking and transportation freight brokerage market is. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Hold on. I apologize. Okay. So let's take a look at this. All right. This right here is I highlighted the key points here that I wanted to share with you. So in this letter that the CEO has written in the front half of the report, there's some important things I wanted to highlight. This particular piece right here addresses what it costs to establish a relationship with a truck driver. And what it says is the cost and time to onboard a trucker to cover a load is very different from the cost to onboard them as a factoring client. If the goal is to pay truckers, scale comes faster on the payer side of the business. The top 1,000 freight brokers handle 90% of brokered freight. Let me read that again. The top 1,000 freight brokers handle 90% of brokered freight. Their use of carriers is overlapping. So onboarding a new freight broker does not add many new carriers to the payer universe. I think that's important for you to grasp. I know a lot of you are looking to get into this industry as a freight broker, as a dispatcher. But as you can see from this report, this piece of information, there's not a lot of space for you to grab a new carrier unless you bring one with you. So a lot of times when you'll see carriers say, I'm going to hook up with a dispatcher, I'm going to hook up with as opposed to a freight broker. And a lot of those reasons is because they want to stay as close as they can to the money. And that's very important, because the closer you are to the money, the better you are. The only caveat, though, is a dispatcher for a truck driver is the middleman. They're actually another middleman between that driver and the shipper. So you have a shipper, then you have the truck driver. Now, the two of them can talk together. A lot of times they don't, for various reasons. So many truck drivers will ask a dispatcher or work with a dispatcher to help them find loads. However, most of those dispatchers are going through a broker. So shipper, broker, dispatcher, driver. There are two middlemen between that transaction. So the money gets thinned out, the more middleman in between. And when you're working with a trucking company and a shipper, that shipper may not pay that driver for 30, 60, 90 days. And if that driver is new, that driver may need credit. So most drivers will hook up with a dispatcher that has some background, has some history, because that dispatcher will go to a factoring company and work with them if they can. Or that driver will hook up with a broker, and that broker will go to a factoring company to help pay that driver sooner, and the factoring company will go get the money. Now, the other piece that I highlighted down here speaks on the credit risk. And so what they're saying is, Triumph is saying this, we are not talking about the credit risk of a trucker. Factoring focuses on the credit risk of the account debtor. That's the shipper or the freight broker who owes the money. If a factor, that means being Triumph, that's the factor, decides it is no longer willing to accept credit risk for certain payers, the trucker who works with the factor are very unlikely to haul for the payer. That materially hurts the logistics network for that shipper or broker. Since 60% of loads are currently factored, you can understand how many truckers would be unavailable. So the blue chip shippers and brokers would not have to worry about this, but tens of thousands of other companies would. And so what the company is addressing here is the new broker that comes in, the new dispatcher that comes in. As I said, there's overlapping. Once that driver registers in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration system, there's only one system. Triumph will automatically know that they're there. And no matter where that trucker goes, their MC number will show up. So if that trucker works with various shippers in the platform or in the transportation and logistics environment, their MC number is showing up on different boards, on different bills, on different correspondence. And so Triumph can track that, which leads me to what this article was all about. Because Triumph understands the market, and because they are in the position that they are with knowing who's doing what truckers are moving, how many truckers are in the system, who those truckers are that they're being paid, they are able to offer this overwatch and team up with a company like Highway. So let's get into that conversation. So who is Highway? Highway is actually a new company. So on their website here, it says that we're technologists and industry veterans who work with heart, hustle, and a sense of urgency. We're on a mission to make freight more connected and secure, and we would be grateful for the opportunity to serve you. So I looked over their group. Definitely has a big team, so it looks. I do want to highlight something I did find interesting, though. The CEO of Triumph has the same last name as the CEO of Highway. And I also noticed that the Chief Operating Officer, Brittany, has the same last name as the CEO of Highway. Are they related? Are they married? It's questionable, but I would probably say that there's a connection between those three. So I just wanted to add that as a side note. So when you look over through this company's website, it shows here that over the last few months, they've been doing press releases. The latest one being Triumph Pay and them have partnered together. They also partnered with Truvo. They've partnered with SEL Supply Chain Solutions, TAI TMS, McLeod Software, and I think that's it. But definitely they're building their partnerships strategically so that along with Triumph, they can now be watchful of this fraud that is taking place. Somebody's got to step up to the plate, so it looks like they've stepped into the ring and they are tackling the double brokering situation. So I hope this information was helpful to you. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you found it to be useful. And like I said, definitely share this video with your somebody you may know who can help you, who can help you, or you can help them. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, my name is Jewel Williams, and I am the founder of Freight Be Moving All Things Logistics. And once again, I'm going to ask you to help me out. So I lost my mouse here for a minute. I hope my thing didn't die. I'm now going to ask you to help me out and subscribe to my channel. I'm on the growth mission to grow this channel to 1,000 subscribers in the next 30 days. I think I can do it. With the mission of adding value to you so that you can be better in your business. And with information like this so that you understand what is factoring, how does factoring help organizations, how is financing in an organization important and why it's important, you now are armed with some information to help you go out there and make better decisions in your freight and transportation business. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.